Yeah.
It's been said that Joe Miller said, "What do you mean toward the one? We are the one." So.
Yeah, that's true, and it's also true. We have to go toward the one, and yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, rather than focusing on toward the one, if we see ourselves more as the one.
We have to do both, Andali. Yeah. If we just, the people who walk around saying, we are the one, and are blind to their own limitations and the degree to which, you know, the way they are experienced and what they are manifesting is far from being enlightened, you know, are just as much to blame as the people who think you only go toward the one you never are the one. You know, I mean, the point is the path requires us to move from where we find ourselves. We find ourselves in a place of separation. We find ourselves in a place where we lack awakening, we lack knowledge, we lack love, we lack forgiveness, we lack strength, we lack all these qualities, we lack equanimity, we lack a sense of eternity where we're not afraid of dying. We lack all these things, you know, in varying degrees, right? So let's admit it and ask to so the way lies within us, but it's not enough to say I am, you know, there is no cage, and every time we try to fly we run into the cage. That's why Anait Khan, if you're on a spiritual path, if you're aspiring for something, if you're already illuminated, and you know it, and you've realized it, and you can function with it in the world, then, you know, you don't need to imagine that you're moving toward the one. You can just be the one. But that's very rare. Most of us, Murshid said, I'm allowed to be positive because when I see I'm off track, I'm quite willing right then and there to drop it, put my head on the floor and surrender and start fresh. And so that gives me permission to be a positive force. He didn't say I'm always right. He didn't say I'm always at one with this. It always comes through clearly, you know. I mean, so it's acknowledging our relative condition. Another thing he said was, you know, people say Maya means illusion. You know, that everything here is Maya, it's all illusion. He said, well, that's well and good, but then you have to start talking about the reality of illusions because they're real to us, and here we are stuck in them. And so unless you can, you know, talk about them in a way that can allow you to overcome them, unless we can deal with our place of separation from oneness by finding our home in the one. And that's why I like to give the breathing practice like I did, of oscillating between the pole of claiming that oneness and being one with the only being, and moving into that place where there's always more. Like Prophet Muhammad said, Allah, there's always more of you to know. And not, I am the one, I am glorious, nothing exceeds me. You know, I mean, and Rumi says, when asked about that, you know, Bastami was drunk with one sip of the wine. And Prophet Muhammad could never be filled because he could see the boundlessness of God's majesty. So that, and that's the Ya Ahad is the one, and Ya Samad is that always flowing toward the one. So, I mean, in the Unity Surah of the Quran, when they questioned Prophet Muhammad about how this God, you know, what sort of creature is this God that this Allah, you know. He got this surah which said, say, he is one, never born, never giving birth, that the source of all and everything flows to him. To it. And it goes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Kulhu Allahu Samad, Allahu Ahad. God is always eternally flowing towards perfections, more and more, eternally. The samad, the circumference of that boundless circle that is endlessly extended, infinitely so. The ocean without a boundary, without a shore. This is the samad, it's just continuous a being. And the ahad is that unity out of which nothing is outside of, the one. And you can't have one without the other. You really can't have one without the other. Because in God, in God's state of aloneness, in God's state of oneness, conceived, came to self-awareness and conceived a beloved, conceived the possibilities that were hidden in her own nature, in his own nature, in its own nature. In thatness's nature, it felt all these possibilities and fell in love with them. And so already now you have dualism in God. God becomes divided, because now God falls in love with himself and another herself in another way. So that's why when Papa Ram Dass was asked this very same question, what is your spiritual realization? And he was a bhakti yogi who had achieved union with God through love. And so that's this dualism, right? The beloved, and you become one with the beloved. But he described his state this way. He said, like the sacred river Ganges that has flowed from the sacred mountain into the ocean, I continue to flow into the ocean. So having become one, recognizing that there is nothing but the one, you continue to flow into the one. And Senzaki, in his interpretation of the Zen koan, he says the same thing, only in a different way. I won't go into it right now because I want to go on, but I do like the questions, and I'm animated by the questions, so that's probably good because